I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
This is the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with Vincent Polisi. Buckle your seatbelt and prepare to learn how to legally make six figures investing in real estate with no money, no credit check, and nothing but a computer and internet connection. Learn how you too can begin generating buyers and sellers for free today, and why you're only 2 calls away from making a $10,000 or more payday while never leaving the comfort of your home. And now, your host, the virtual real estate investor, Vincent Polisi.
Here we go. Welcome, investors. I want to welcome you to episode 001 of the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast. Today, we are going to cover unquestionably the most important subject topic that you can possibly learn in business and in life. What am I talking about? I am talking about sales.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. You think I'm with you? I am not with you.
And now, it's time for Coffees for Closers Only. Listen as Vincent walks you step by step through sales closing techniques, objection handling, pre-qualification questions, the 4 buying personality types, NLP, and everything related to professionally closing sales.
I know most of you guys need this like a drowning person needs a life raft. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this quickly. So here's what you're going to learn. Why learning to sell and close is the number one skill to doing more deals and making more money. That, I believe, is what you guys all want, right? You all want to do more deals and make more money. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? How to close like a pro, the 7-step professional sales process, how to handle objections, and then we're going to walk through the example closing techniques that I use and that you can implement immediately today in all of your prospecting ventures, whether you're doing wholesaling or contract assignments or subject to or owner finance or straight cash purchases, no matter what it is. We're going to walk you through that and how to handle the objections and then how to actually close. So let's talk about why learning to sell and close is the number one skill to doing more deals and making more money. First, and this is so unbelievably overlooked by most people. Every business is in the sales business. Every business. You've never heard of any business going out of business because of too many sales. No, you've heard the exact opposite, right? Why do businesses go out of business? They don't have enough sales, right? You've never heard anybody going out of business because they had too many sales. Every time 2 people get together, whether it's business or not, a sale is made. Either you sell them or they sell you. The key is to understand it when it happens and to learn to master it so that you are the person selling, not being sold. What's the one thing you always want more of in business? It's more sales, right? Yet, amazingly, this is not the core foundation, the very first thing that people are generally taught when they get into the business realm or into real estate investing or anything else. They're not taught how to professionally sell and close. But we're going to go ahead and bridge that gap today. And improving your closing ratio means you spend less money and less time on marketing and you burn up fewer leads. I mean, what's the cost of one lead that you generate? If you're doing any type of paid marketing or advertising, sending out mailers, anything like that, what is the cost to you in the time and money and effort that you put in to generate that lead to then lose it because you're inept at sales or not completely professionally trained or something happened that you couldn't handle? What is the cost of doing that? And how many times have you done it? How many deals have you lost because you didn't know how to close them? Here's the problem. This is the one thing that the real estate gurus don't teach. It's sales. It's the very first thing I always teach, because once you've got the core foundation of sales and closing ability down, it translates and transfers over to any industry, not just real estate. You could go sell software. You could go sell vacation packages, sell widgets. It doesn't matter. Once you're proficient at selling and closing, you're going to make money in any industry that you go into. So what they do, instead of teaching you how to sell and to close, is they tell you to spend money on systems, spend money on marketing, generate leads that you are not prepared to handle. It's an exercise in futility. And people follow these programs and these courses and they spend the money over and over and over again on the next bright, shiny object when what they're looking for, the thing that they're missing, is only one thing. It's not some big fangled new system, some magic pill that somebody's got. The core thing that they're missing is how to sell and close. The beautiful thing is that sales is a process that can be taught. Okay? It absolutely can be taught. I was taught how to sell and close. You can be taught how to sell and close. Anybody can be taught how to sell and close. So the question is, if this is the most paramount thing to any business anywhere, why is it they don't teach it? And the answer is that most of them have never been professionally trained and, quite frankly, don't know it. They're playing a numbers game. They're throwing darts at a dartboard. They're oversaturating markets without pre-qualified leads to bring all these leads in so that they can, basically have you do the exact same thing to bring in more leads than they can handle. And through strictly just an equation of eventually somebody's going to say yes, they get to getting deals done. And that's not the way you want to be. Okay. So what they do instead of teaching you how to sell and close is they befuddle you with setting up all these systems, right? Everybody's got their system and their CRM that you got to set up, and Podio and Zoho and all these other things that they want to make you waste time setting up before you do the most important fundamental thing, and that is to learn how to sell and close. Because the second that you learn how to sell and close, you can immediately get on the phone or go live face-to-face with a prospect and start making money. That is why it is the very first thing that I ever teach people in any business that I'm doing, because it is absolutely key. Systems are wonderful. I have a lot of systems. I use a lot of automation. I use Podio myself. I use a lot of other things that integrate to help automate and scale businesses, but without an ability to close and to convert and close, it's all wasted because there's no prospects that are going in. There's no closings that are happening. There's no funding that's happening as a result of all of that automation and scaling and lead generation. That's not what you want to do. So they teach you how to set these systems up, right? All these processes. And the whole purpose of that is to do what? To generate leads, right? You want to generate leads. Problem is, you don't know what to do with them. You're not qualified to handle them. You haven't taken them through the process, pre-qualify them, to build rapport, to present what you've got, whatever you're doing, whether it's in real estate or real estate investing or whatever, to then take them through the trial close process, handle the objections, and close them out, right? You don't know how to do that yet in most cases. So leads come in, and guess what? Leads go right back out, and somebody else is going to get them. And guess who's going to get them? The guy that can close, or the girl that can close. That's who's going to get them. But the beautiful thing is it's going to be taught. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to do what most people do. They want to get into business, and they think that they're some sort of professional, but not really professional at all, because they've never taken the time to get professionally trained on the most important facet component there is in any business, and that is how to sell. The way that you sell and you close like a pro is education and practice. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Constant education and practice to understand what it is that you're doing, and then practice to the point that you're completely polished and never get flustered in any environment. So here's the normal reaction to being what I call awakened to reality. And the reality is that no, you're not going to go out there and make 6 or 7 figures without learning how to sell and close. You're not going to do it consistently. And if you get lucky enough and fall into something, the problem is that eventually the market's going to shift, something's going to change. And without having developed that skill set, you go from making money to being broke and having to start over with no real core foundation of how to do that. Once you've learned how to sell and close, you can transfer it to any industry. Doesn't make a difference. So this is what most people do. I get this all the time on the coaching side. I want to make 6 figures and I want to be self-employed. And I say, great, you'll have to master selling and closing. And here we go. Sounds like a lot of work to me. I'm out of here. And that's what most people do, because they don't want to learn how to sell and close. What they want to do is take the easy path, which doesn't exist. Certainly not to be making $600,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. It doesn't exist. There's no easy path for that. And they want to buy a course. They want to attend some seminars or webinars or whatever and feel like they've got now an annuity that's going to pay them out $10,000 plus per month without them having to do anything, without them having to come out of their comfort zone, without them having to learn. They simply think that they're going to implement some system that's going to be a cash money machine. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way for me or for anybody else. So let's talk about education. Why is this so important? Well, to be continuously successful in anything requires continual education and continual practice. The way I like to relate this to is this. Did Michael Jordan ever stop learning and practicing even after winning multiple NBA titles? Absolutely not. Come on. Take a look at the professional athletes. They're at the top of their game. Did they ever stop watching film learning new plays, learning new routes, learning new defenses, practicing on a daily basis. No, they don't ever. Through the course of their career, they never stop learning and they never stop practicing. And if that's what professionals do, why aren't you doing that? That's the key thing that most people don't ever ask themselves. They're busy working, they got families, they got this. But to get the results that you're looking for, you're going to have to get educated. All right. Most people don't want to read. I understand that. We're in the digital world now. It's all video and Facebook and Twitter and all this. But unfortunately, you're going to have to get yourself educated to some new things that perhaps some other people aren't doing. And then once you've done that and you've been initiated, which you're about to be right here in just a few minutes, you have to practice. And people don't want to practice. Nobody wants to practice. But practice makes perfect, right? Isn't that right? Yes, no, I don't know. What is he saying? He's saying no, false. Practice makes permanent. And in the sales arena, that's exactly what it does. Practice makes you not only perfect, but it also makes it permanently ingrained in your mind so that when you get an objection, and you're going to get a lot of objections in sales, and objections are a good thing. They signify interest. When those things happen, you have to be prepared and able to deal with them. And the only way that you're going to be prepared and able to deal with them effectively, and let me make this say this a different way, cost effectively, so that you're not burning up leads unnecessarily, is to practice. So I'm going to tell you what I did. When I first got professionally trained on sales, I was taken by a company and flown up to Greensboro, North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And we sat for, I think it was a week, being taught professional sales closing. Best training I've ever had. Absolutely fantastic. They took us through the bulls, owls, lambs, and tigers, 4 buying personality types, took us through a DISC profile so we could understand our own personality types and then understand the different personality types that we would come across in sales. And you need to understand this because not everybody's the same, and the exact same approach doesn't work with everyone. So you can be like a telemarketer and use the same spiel every single time, right? Which is not going to work. Or you can be a chameleon and understand who it is, but this only comes from education now. Understand the personality type that you're talking to, and then modify your approach. This happens real time when you're talking to them, when you're face to face with them. You have to modify your approach based on their personality type, not yours, not the pitch that you've got, not the script that you have. None of this stuff matters. You have to be able to modify yourself based on the person that you're talking to. More importantly, you have to be able to identify the personality type that you're talking to. And if you guys have never been through any personality profile training, you're way behind the 8 ball because you need to understand what makes these people tick. We talk about the 4 different buying personality types. And if you ever take the what's called the BOLT test, you'll understand how imperative it is to understand personality types and who you're dealing with, because each one of the 4 have to be sold differently. There's a different approach that works with each one of them, but if you don't know what that is, guess what you're probably doing? What everybody else is doing. Same approach, same pitch every single time. And if that's the case, your closing ratio is nowhere near what it should be. So here's what I did. Once I got professionally trained, still didn't have any real world experience. I was professionally trained at that point. I then got another guy that was in the office who was a master closer. And I had sat with him and shadowed him and watched him close and close and close and close. And I saw this guy get hit with every objection known to man. And every time he got hit with an objection, price is too high, it's this, it's that, it's whatever, I don't like that color. He had just like it was like a robot. He didn't get flustered, didn't twitch, didn't flinch, nothing. The response to that objection just rolled right off his tongue. People got the answer they were looking for, and they whipped out their checkbooks, and he made money. And I said, that's what I want to be able to do. Handle those objections when they come like that. So I told the guy, I said, listen, what I want you to do is every time we pass by each other in the office, out on the lot, whatever anytime you're on the phone, whatever, I want you to, out of the blue, hit me with an objection. Catch me off guard so that I can become as proficient at dealing with the objections as you are. And I got out 3x5 cards, and I wrote every objection down, and I wrote on the back of the 3x5 card the answer to that, and I just wrote like flashcards, like being back in school. I went over them and repeated them and ingrained them in my mind until the point in time that I had to memorize and had repeated them verbally so many times that when I said it didn't sound scripted. It was conversational. It all made sense. Now, did he bust me? He busted me a bunch of times. I mean, I felt like the new kid on the block, just getting, beat up left and right, because every time, for the first few weeks, I mean, he would catch me off guard, and I would stutter and I would stammer and I wouldn't have it down pat and wouldn't have it fluid. But that's what it took. And I had to make the ultimate decision. Is it worth it to go through that, to put myself through that practice? But that's what it took. Okay. And through that continual practice, and through every time he would catch me and like I wouldn't get it right, what I would do. And I tell my own coaching clients this very same thing. Anytime you're working on a deal, anytime you're dealing with a prospect and they hit you with something that you can't handle, you don't know how to handle it. Could be anything. Could be the price objection. Could be closing objections. Could be anything. Anytime they hit you with something that you're not prepared for, any type of objection, you need to, when you're off that call, write that objection down on a 3x5 card. Figure out what the answer is. Talk to me or talk to somebody else that can give you the way to handle that objection. And then you don't proceed with another lead or another prospect until you've mastered the ability to handle that objection. And if you do that, you will become as proficient as I am, as proficient as Brian Tracy is, as proficient as Grant Cardone is in dealing with people, handling objections, and closing. But if you don't do that, you're going to be exactly where you are right now. That's not where you want to be. You want to be continuously moving forward and progressing. It's going to take practice. You're going to have to get your teeth kicked in. Is that pleasant? No. But do you want to make, 2, 3, 4, 500,000 a year, $1 million a year? If that's what you want to do, then this is what you're going to have to learn. This is what most people won't do because it's hard. Right? Nobody wants to get out of their comfort zone. Nobody wants to look like a fool. Nobody wants to have to work and practice. And oh my God, I have to read something. I have to start reading every single day on my industry and my craft and learning how to sell and close and learning how to massage and structure these deals so that when I get zapped with some sort of objection, I have an ability verbally to handle the objection, but I also have the creativity to understand what else I can do to not give away the farm, still make a profit, put together a win-win deal. You have to get yourself in those positions. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that somebody balks at your offer, your price is too high, and you don't know where to go with that. And if once you lower the price, okay, we'll lower the price to this, then guess what? Then they know that your price was fraudulent to begin with, and they feel like you've lied to them or deceived them or attempted to deceive them and defraud them. And then it never stops and they want more and more and more. You have to be able to handle the price. I mean, the price objection is the number one objection to handle, period, in any type of sales environment, because it's the only thing people know instinctively to object to. So after practicing, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about what you're going to practice. And I'm going to cover what you're going to practice in the next podcast. So be on the lookout for that. It'll be episode 002, which will cover the 7-step sales process in complete detail.
Look out! Here comes another knowledge bomb.
In today's episode of The Knowledge Bomb, we're going to cover the 3 components necessary to close a deal and get paid. If someone were to ask me what's the number one issue that faces new investors and, in fact, seasoned investors in getting a deal closed, what I would tell them is it's the tendency to unnecessarily overcomplicate the process. And unfortunately, what happens in most of the guru courses that are out there, this is the very first thing that is taught. They're taught to overcomplicate the process. So let's get down to the brass tacks here of exactly what you need to get a deal closed and make money. You need 3 things. What are those 3 things? You need a buyer, you need a seller, and you need a contract. And that is it. There's nothing else that's required to get a deal closed. In fact, you can turn a deal, and I've got videos on this that we put up, you can see them on the website. You can turn a deal start to finish in the very same day, as long as you can put together those 3 components and you can get paid and have money wired to your account. You need a buyer, you need a seller, and you need a contract. That's it. Nothing else. You don't have to have CRMs. You don't have to have websites. You don't have to have all kinds of fancy software integrations. You don't have to have all of those things. We boil this down to its most basic fundamental component. The only things that you need are buyers, sellers, and contracts. And depending on what position you are in the transaction, you are one of those. You're either the buyer or the seller. Contracts are easy. They can actually be written on a cocktail napkin if you can believe it. So that's not really a big factor. So now all you're looking for is 1 or 2 of the other components. You may be buying a property, utilizing an owner finance contract to then sell or rent that to somebody else. So you're going to be looking for 2 other people. Number 1, a seller, that has a property that is viable for the type of deal that you're doing. And then you find a buyer, which they're out there. They're everywhere right now because nobody qualifies for conventional financing anymore, virtually no one, it seems like anyway. And so the key thing here that I would advise is that you don't unnecessarily overcomplicate the process. People like to put all of these systems and software and buffers in between them and doing the one thing that they need to be doing more than anything. That's prospecting and actually physically talking to leads, buyer leads, seller leads, tenant leads, depending on the deal type. No text message. Don't waste time on emails. You have to pick up the phone. Or in some cases, you're going to see people in person. I don't do that because I do everything virtually, but you've got to pick the phone up. You cannot hide behind text messaging and email. What you're looking for is the fastest path to get a buyer and or seller or both converted. And that's what we're going to teach you how to do. Teach you how to do it very quickly. You're going to get to hear live calls of how I've done it in as little as 25 minutes with people and had contracts signed right then, all done virtually. You'll get to hear and see all that. But why is it that I can do that? It's because I do not overcomplicate the process. I'm looking to get from A to Z in the shortest number of steps possible. And in my case, that's buyer, seller, contract. 3 steps to A to Z. That's it. That's what you have to focus on. Period.
You've got questions, he's got answers, though you probably won't like them. It's time for Ask Vincent Anything.
Hey, Vincent, I was just wondering, what do you do when you hear objections, and what are the most common objections you hear from a prospective buyer of a property?
Kyle, that's an excellent question, and I like where your head's at. Objection handling is absolutely one of the most fundamental components that you can possibly learn and master to close deals. Unquestionably, because you're going to get hit with objections. Whether you want to or not, you're going to get hit with them. So it only logics out and makes sense that you should become extremely proficient in handling them. And the way that you do that is through first understanding what they are, practicing the comeback and how to handle the objection, and then eventually getting out there and getting some real world experience so you can see how these things play out in real life on real deals and how you have to bob and weave to maneuver through them sometimes. So if we're talking about the objections that you're going to get with a buyer, we'll cover a couple of different bases here. I assume you're talking about it on an owner finance transaction, but let me cover that and a conventional retail sale. If we're talking about a conventional retail sale, the number one objection that you're going to get from a retail buyer, this is the end user who's going to be buying a primary residence for themselves where they are the owner occupant. The number one objection that you're always going to get is going to be based off of price because, quite frankly, they don't know anything else to object to. Price is the number one objection that you'll ever get in just about any sales environment. And this is where it becomes your job and function to convey and provide enough value to the point that price is a non-issue. But if somebody objects to price, say, okay, well, I want to sell the house for $750,000 and they say the price is too high, then my answer to that is compared to what? And then you shut up and use the silent close. And this is a technique I learned from Brian Tracy many years ago. And the reason that it works so well, quite frankly, is because number one, the answer is they don't know, because they don't really have any logical basis for what they're objecting to. They just know that they're supposed to object so they can get a quote unquote good deal. And in their minds, the price objection is the way to do that. But here's the reality that you'll probably never hear anywhere else. Residential buyers on primary residences do not buy houses based off price. Ever, ever, ever. Common misconception, urban myth, misnomer. They do not buy houses based on price. I've made absolute fortunes understanding this fact because what they buy houses off of is payments, terms, or a combination of the two. It's never about the price. And we've proven this time and time again, and we actually have it with some of the recorded calls that I have with buyers where you can actually hear me ask people this. And I used to ask this to buyers all the time when I was in mortgage banking was, if I could put you in $1 million house for $1,000 a month, would you buy it? And the answer is always yes. Yes, I would buy it because it's not about the price. It's about the monthly payment in that example. So handling the price objection on a residential retail sale has got to be the number one objection that you're going to get. Now, on an owner finance deal, you typically don't get a whole lot of objections. One of the probably bigger questions you'll get sometimes is like, there are concerns about the deal structure and what I'm talking about as far as payment and terms. So you'll get questions about what's the interest rate because there's a lot of concern about people, if they don't qualify for conventional financing, that they're going to be overcharged in interest rate by an unscrupulous vulture investor. So in other words, when rates are right now hovering between 3.5% and 5.5%, depending on the loan type, that they would end up having to pay 12%. And those deals are out there, certainly, but that's probably one of the biggest concerns that somebody's got. And are they going to object to paying 12%? Absolutely they are, because that absolutely impacts the monthly payment that they're paying, regardless of the fact of whether they qualify for conventional financing or not. But in my case, I don't do those types of transactions, so I don't really get hit with that. I don't really get a lot of objections from buyers because we've created such a value proposition that they really can't get anywhere else, or very, very, very few other places the way I've got things structured. I'm not aware of any place else they can get the exact same thing, but the value proposition is there to the point that I don't really get a whole lot of objections from buyers. Really, the bigger concern is it just seems too good to be true, because the deal structure is designed to create a win-win, and it's designed to create a successful takeout. And by takeout, I mean refinance by the buyer into conventional mortgage financing by the end of their contract term. So we begin with the end in mind, create value through the process, and as a result, don't have to deal with a lot of buyer objections, thankfully.
Hey, what's up, investors? John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of Entrepreneur on Fire, awarded Best of iTunes 2013, and you're listening to the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with my man, Vincent Polisi. Prepare to ignite.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth, man.
To be successful in real estate investing, you gotta understand the language. Sit back as Vincent takes you through common real estate investing and business lingo in this episode of Vincent's Vernacular.
In this episode, we're going to cover two of the most important vocabulary words in real estate there are. What are those two words? They are title and deed. You will hear these two words mixed around interchangeably as if they mean the same thing, and they absolutely do not. They are two entirely different things that I will cover in this episode, and I'm also going to explain to you why it's so important to understand the distinction between the two to ensure that you're not illegally brokering without a license. Last thing you want to do is get arrested or fined or censured because you're out there acting in a way that is construed as illegally brokering without a license because you don't have equitable title or legal title, a power of attorney, or a license. So let's talk about the two things. What is a title and what is a deed? What generally happens is people get confused with title because they think of a car title. A car title is a paper document that conveys ownership interest in that vehicle. That is not the same in real estate. A real estate title has nothing to do with a paper document. In fact, it is not a paper document. It is a bundle of rights. Those rights are a bundle of rights associated with that property. It has nothing to do with a piece of paper. There is no piece of paper called a title in real estate. You'll hear what's called a chain of title, and that is a paper document that goes through generally anywhere from 5, 10, 25, 50 years previous history of the chain of title for any and all claims against that property, any claims of ownership interest in that particular property. But there is no such thing as a paper title on a property. Now, let's talk about this and why this is so important. The deed is the paper document that conveys ownership interest in a real estate transaction. So if you're out there doing contract assignments or what is mistakenly called wholesaling, it's imperative to understand that in order for you to legally market that contract for sale, that property for sale, you must have obtained equitable interest if you're not getting a listing as a real estate agent. Other than equitable interest via a properly structured contract, the only other way legally to market that property or have anything to do with that property, to sell it or convey any type of interest to another third party, is going to be through a power of attorney. Now, here's where it gets confusing. You can have equitable interest or equitable title in a property, but not have the deed. However, you cannot have the deed and not have both equitable title and legal title, or equitable interest and legal interest in the property. So let me give you a couple of real world examples, so hopefully this will make sense. If you recall, title is a bundle of rights associated with the property. Now, there are any number of parties that can have rights associated with the property other than an owner. A very basic, easy example would be a subcontractor who comes out to perform work on the property. So as an example, if an air conditioner repairman comes out and he performs labor and he replaces an air conditioner unit, he now has a time investment and a capital investment associated with that property. He now has a claim for title against that property. In other words, he has a bundle of rights associated with that property up until the point in time that he is paid for his services. In the event that he is not paid, he makes his claim for title, his bundle of rights associated with that property via what's called a mechanics lien. That mechanics lien now becomes what is known as a cloud on the title. It's considered a defect in the title because without paying it off or getting it removed, title and deed cannot effectively transfer to a new owner. Other examples of parties or entities that would have claim to title or a bundle of rights associated with a property, and you'll see these on the chain of title, will be entities like an HOA. So just to give you a couple other examples of entities or parties that you can find on the chain of title who have a claim or a bundle of rights associated with a property will be things like mortgage liens, judgments, memorandums, taxes, mechanics liens, etc. When you hear about lenders ordering the title, what they're ordering is a chain of title which will define any and all claims against the property that have been recorded at the courthouse. These can be mortgage liens, judgments, deeds, memorandums, taxes, HOA dues, mechanic liens, etc. It's merely an aggregate of all the claims found by the abstractor put together on one piece of paper.
And now it's time for No BS with the virtual real estate investor, Vincent Polisi.
Question I get all the time is it really possible to become self-employed, a full spectrum, full-time real estate investor doing nothing but 100% virtual deals, being able to live the life you want, where you want, when you want, on your schedule? And the answer to that question is absolutely yes. Absolutely, yes, it is. Here's the catch, though. You're going to have to do things differently than the way that you've done them before. You're going to have to break out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to go against the grain of what everybody else is doing. One of the smartest things that any of you can do is to take a look at what the herd is doing. What is the herd doing? Where are they going? What direction are they going in? What types of deals are they doing? And when you examine that and understand it, is that what you want to be doing? And when I had to go through this back in 2007 myself, the answer to that was absolutely not. I did not want to be stuck in a local micro market in a brick and mortar location where I was basically a commoditized entity fighting, competing against other people. That is not the way to freedom. It is not the way to fun. It is not the way to pleasure. It is not the way to live the life that you want to live. And that is unfortunately what most people do. And the reason why they do that is because they simply will not make the hard decisions. Most people like to be surrounded by other people. They like to do what other people are doing. That's not you. You have to be a pioneer. You have to go against the grain. You have to be a leader. You have to break the mold, not want to be doing what other people are doing. Create your own unique selling proposition or USP, your own model. Make it work for you. One thing I was taught many years ago was there are enough people that will do business my way that I don't have to worry about those who won't. And so when I came up with this model back in 2007, everybody told me it wouldn't work. You're going to do deals on properties in other states that you're never going to go see with people that you're never going to go meet. And your main advertising medium or way that you're connecting with these people is going to be through Craigslist with all of the bad rap that it gets. And you're going to expect that people are going to pay you and then send you 5- and 6-figure wires. You're out of your mind. I can still hear it like it was yesterday. But I didn't listen to that. And what I did was I made the business work the way that I wanted it to. And you can do the exact same thing. What you need to do is take some time and think about exactly how you want the business to work for you, your business, your model, and then create that, make that happen. Imagine, if you will, while everybody else is out there grinding it out, driving all over town, spending all kinds of money on marketing and signs and letters and postage and lists and all this, that I have the ability, and I've done this for years, to be able to do deals from the beach or from wherever I'm at, to travel where I want to go, when I want to go, and still make money from anywhere. And all I need is an iMac or an iPad and an internet connection. And that is it.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Everybody better sit down and cover their butts because Vincent's on a rampage. His foot is getting twitchy. And here comes another segment of his world famous Butt Meat Boot Coaching.
As a paid coach, a joint venture partner on a ton of deals, and someone who also sells info products and courses, membership subscriptions, etc., I get solicited all the time for all types of advice. I'm going to give you here the key, the number one secret that there is to success when you're following somebody else's program, something that you've seen them be successful with. And that's the key. If you've seen somebody be successful with something to the point that you're either paying them for their information, paying them for their advice, paying them for a course or consulting, then it stands to reason that it would make unbelievable sense to simply do one thing and one thing exceptionally well. Unfortunately, most people have an innate inability to do this one thing. And I see it time and time and time again. And I'm not alone in this. I've got a number of other colleagues that are also real estate investors who also do coaching and consulting, who also do joint venture deals, and they see the exact same thing. What is that one thing? It's the ability to simply follow instructions. You'd think it'd be simple. Things are mapped out step by step, laid out so that even a child could do it. The challenge is that when you're dealing with a lot of different personality types, especially ones that are coming to you over social media, people that you don't know, you end up dealing with a lot of the following type people. You have to deal with those who are vying for dominance as the alpha dog, who want to prove to you that they know better than you. You have to deal with the people that have no ability to focus. And by focus, I mean follow one course until successful. You have the people that are looking for the easy way out, the get-rich-quick scheme, which does not exist. You have the people that are easily distracted and victims of what I call the bright, shiny object syndrome, where they start one thing, it doesn't happen or materialize quickly, mainly because they don't follow instructions and follow through. And then they determine that it's not successful or it's a scam, and they move on to the next bright, shiny object. So the best piece of advice that I can give you as it relates to anything you're doing, but if you're going to work to be a virtual real estate investor and you're going to follow anything that I'm going to show you, which works, and it's well documented that it works, and you'll be able to hear in this podcast actual live buyer and seller calls that get closed, so you can do your own due diligence and document for yourself that it does work. If you're going to do those things, if you're going to follow along, then my strongest piece of advice to you is to simply follow instructions. That's it. I have had people that have followed my instructions and gone from zero to a $10,000 payday in 21 days. And you can do it too, but only if you follow instructions. Unfortunately, what happens in many cases, and this is especially the case with guys or men, it seems like, is that they get involved, they start down the path, and they can't just follow the system, especially a system like mine, which is elegantly simple and simply elegant. Its elegance is its simplicity and the fact that it works immediately, it works for free. And unfortunately, it's a big trip up for a lot of people because they can't believe that something that's so simple that certainly anybody could think of could actually work, and work to the point that it does, where you can make money from it in the very same day. And so what do? They end up trying to dissect, reconstruct, add on, integrate, improve the very basic methodologies that are working before they've actually followed the instructions to make them work. And so what this does is it creates yet another delay in their success, a delay in them getting paid and doing a deal, a delay in their experience level, because now they're over preparing and they're overcomplicating the process. And it is not necessary to overcomplicate a real estate transaction process. It just isn't. So don't be that person. Okay, there's a reason that I do more joint venture deals with women than I do with men, and that is simply because women follow instructions. Women don't have to get into some sort of chest-pounding ego battle with me as a man, and so as a result, they follow instructions, and guess what? They do deals and get paid. So if you're going to be following along this path, again, my number one piece of advice, the number one secret to success is to simply follow instructions. Don't deviate. Don't add on. The advice I give my coaching clients is after you've done 3 or 4 deals and you've knocked down, $30, $40, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in cash, you've seen how the process works. You've made it work yourself. At that point, Then if you want to go in and you want to spice it up, add to it, make it better, by all means do that. But don't do any of that stuff until you have taken the time to understand the process, to see how it works for free, why it works for free, how it works so quickly. Do it my way first. Then, once you've been successful and gotten paid several times, you've seen the nuances, the ins, the outs, the ups, the downs, the good and bad. Then at that point, if you want to add on, by all means, knock yourself out. Nobody is saying that this is the best possible system that's ever been developed. No, it's a system that works. And it's a system that pays. That's what it is. There is no claim to anything else. So do it my way first, second, third, and fourth. Then, and only then, improve upon it if you feel it needs improvement.
You've been listening to the Virtual Real Estate Investor Podcast with Vincent Polisi. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to connect with Vincent at virtualrealestateinvestor.org, Facebook at facebook.com/virtual real estate investor, or at Vincent's private Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/virtual real estate investor.